Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to another tutorial slash guide from me. This guide is going to be the callouts for buildings in all the buildings in DayZ. This is a very important guide for newer players or medium skilled players. This is something you guys should learn as soon as you feel like you can take this task on. Learning the callouts and names for buildings are extremely important when pointing out players and things that need to be pointed out, and will be used every single time you play DayZ. Whether it's, with friends on TeamSpeak or Skype, or even just people you meet in game, the callouts are very, very important. So, another thing I would like to say that I'm pretty excited about. This is going to be a pre-video. Once you guys learn this video and you guys can learn things, we are going to be doing a very long series on how to PvP in certain towns. I will be picking out towns, popular ones that are PvP heavy, and we are going to be doing guides on what to do, how to PvP, what are hot spots, what you expect, basically how to PvP and get a bunch of tips to PvP in that town. So, make sure you leave a comment below on what town you want to see the guide on first. And I need a name for this series. I don't know what to name it yet, so leave me any suggestions in the comment section below. Without further ado, let's get into this video. So, the first houses we're going to be talking about are the one-level buildings, or the one-story buildings. This means there is no upstairs. They're strictly one-level residential buildings. These you're going to just see in towns. These are no special buildings. They're just one-story residential. So this one is just called the Big Yellow House. That is strictly what it's called in the files, and that's just exactly what it is. So there is really no name for this. I have never heard a call out. You could just call it, Big Yellow House. Pretty simple. It's the only big yellow house in the game, so it can't really be mixed up for anything else. This one is very similar to the last one we looked at. It's actually the same color and the same roof and everything, but this one is the small yellow house. Very, very similar to the other one, except it's much smaller. So small yellow house. It's once again the only small yellow house in the game. So big yellow house, small yellow house. Very, very easy to remember, considering that's just easy and they're the only ones in the game. This house is the small yellow brown house, but this also is known as the barn house because of the the shingles, whatever that, the scrap metal that's on top like a barn, and the fact that the house is shaped like a barn at the top. Therefore, it's called the barn house. Pretty simple, right? This is the green and orange house, also known as Jamaican because of its colors. This one is the small red and green house, also known as the watermelon house because of the fact that, well, once again, colors equal watermelon. This one's a little tricky. This one's known as the small greenhouse in the files, but I have never heard of a word or call out for it myself due to the fact that there's not that many of these ones in the game. But small greenhouse is pretty good, or you could also say small greenhouse by and then give out another location that's near it, and that should be pretty easy to call out. Next one's actually very similar to this other one, except this one is a split level greenhouse. This one is not a small greenhouse. You could call it medium greenhouse, or what it's actually called, the green split level house. Once again, pretty simple. It's the only one of its kind. Next one on the list is very similar to the last one we showed, called the green split level house. This one is also the same thing, except it's red. So as you guessed it, the red split level house, or the red level split house, whatever you want to go by. It's the same thing, just red. This one is also very simple. This is the peach house because it is the only peach colored house, but also due to the fact that it can also spawn heavy amounts of food. It used to, that's why it used to be called the food house, because it was the most spawned, it had the house that spawned the most food, but it's also commonly known as the peach house, once again the only one of its kind. So now we're on to the 3 variant log cabins. This is the 1-story cabin in the game files, or you could call it the double roomed log cabin because it's the cabin with 2 rooms in it, but you kind of got to makeshift this one depending on your group. Another thing I just like to say, obviously the more frequent you play with a certain group, you guys are just going to start making up your own sayings for buildings, and you're going to get to know them that way as well. This one is just the single log cabin, the 1-roomed log cabin, or it used to be known as the gun house and still is to all the older players because this house used to spawn a lot of guns, so it used to be called the gun house or gun cabin or 1-roomed cabin or single-roomed cabin. Last cabin on the list would be the log cabin or the village pub or the inn cabin. This is a cabin that's like a vacation place where there's 2 rooms upstairs and there is a pub on the right side. So the log cabin, the inn cabin, or the village pub is what it's known as. Next on the list would be the bread brick house or the brick house. It once again is pretty much the only one of its kind. Here is another version of a brick house, but this one is not called the red brick house or brick house. This one is actually the red brick pub because it is a red brick house, but it's not a house. It's actually a pub because there's chairs and tables and a pub in there. So it's red brick pub. So we are now done with the 1-story buildings, and we will be moving on to the 2-story buildings. So this one is called the 2-story greenhouse or double green. Now this one is also called the double green and always referred to as a double green, but is also called the big greenhouse in the files of the game. But this one is always called double green, as is the other one, because technically it is a double green, double story house, double green. But also you got to remember that you could use other callouts to describe the other green, or you could call it alternate double green, other double green, but this one you call double green. As you can see, this one's very similar to the other big greenhouse, except it's red, so as you guessed it, it's big red house or double red is what it's always referred to as, double red. So there are apartment buildings or tenant buildings or flats in this game, depending on where you live. You call them all sorts of different things. But there is 2 differences between the 2 different ones. There's the short tenant building and there is the tall tenant building, or the short flat, short apartment, tall apartment. So both of these pictures will be showed in this video, and you can see the difference. When it comes to a PvP scenario on the apartments, you just have to be really descriptive on if it's short or tall and what it's by, left hand side, right hand side. And then it's really easy to pinpoint which apartment you guys are talking about. This is a very easy building to point out and call, considering it's one of a kind. It is called the piano house due to the fact that there is a piano house in the first floor of this building. But this is called the piano house. You guys have seen it many times. There's a lot of them throughout the map, and it's a very simple call out. As you can kind of tell that this one is really close to a piano building because the right side of the building it looks exactly like a piano building, but it's actually much different because not only is the one that looks like a piano, the inside different, and there is no piano, and there's a completely new left side on it. This is a sewing factory or a sweatshop. They're the same thing. Sweatshop is used as a different name as a sewing factory, and the reason it's a sewing factory is because it is a factory with a bunch of sewing machines that are in it that is in a sewing factory. I've heard other people call it something different, but when they call it something different, that's just their own made-up way. It is actually and truly meant to be a sweatshop, and that's exactly what it is. So sweatshop or a sewing factory is what it should be known as. This building is actually called the Beige Inn, but it's commonly called the Beige House because it is the only house that's beige that is not called something very specific. This is just the Beige House. So this is called the clinic or the medical clinic. This is just the blue house that looks like this, but make sure you do not call it the hospital. A lot of people mistake this as the hospital, but it is the clinic or the med clinic. There's two different things between this and the hospital. Even though they spawn the same things, there is a very big difference. So this is the clinic or the med clinic. Now this is the hospital. This is the hospital. This spawns the same thing as the clinic, med clinic, medical clinic, but this one is still called the hospital. So that's the difference. So careful when you call out, because a lot of people mistake the two, and that will turn whoever, if you need to do a call out, they'll be looking at the exactly opposite place. So this is the hospital. This one is a big mistake in the DayZ community, more than people would think. This is actually the office building. This is what it is designed to be. This is what it is meant to be. That is what it is called and designed by DayZ in their files. So this is the office building, but everyone in the game calls it a school. So this is most likely going to be called out as a school because DayZ, it's kind of DayZ's fault because they made it. This is a little fun fact. It's kind of DayZ's fault because they made items that would spawn in a school, spawn in there, and they put like desks and stuff like an office building, but then there was school supplies in there, so people got it mistaken. But it's actually an office, but its call out is normally school. So this one is a newer DayZ building. This is a school that they added in a couple patches ago, or patch ago, depending on when you're watching this. This one is meant to actually be a school, but since the old one was called a school, everyone calls this the high school. So not school. The other one I showed is office, and people call it school, but this one is called high school. This is called the TEC building, or the tech building, because on the side of it has a giant 3-letter lettering that says TEC or tech. So TEC or tech building. This one is a very simple and obvious one, but I thought I'd include it anyway. This is the supermarket or the grocery store, whatever you go at. Some people call it depends on where you live, where people live, they call it the grocery store in like America. Some people call it the store, some people call it the market, some people call it the supermarket. All the same thing. This one is kind of an odd spot in the video. This was my bad. I kind of forgot to add it in. This is the cafe, or also known as the corner pub, because it is a pub that is on the corner at all times. It's always on a corner, so it's cafe or corner pub. Next is a red brick building like this. Sometimes it's just a red brick building, or sometimes it's a red brick building with a little hanger over it like this that you can actually enter. They're both the same buildings, always on the train tracks or right next to them like that. That is obviously the train station. It is a station right next to the train tracks. Next one is a very distinct building. The way it looks is in a lot of towns, and you can never really mistake its look. This is the police station. It spawns police gear, and it's just the police station. It's a very simple call out, very easy one to remember, in a very popular building. As is this one. This one is just as popular as the other one, but this one is called the fire station. As you can see, it's a fire station, and it spawns things that a fire station would: fire axes, firefighter helmets, stuff like that. So this is a very popular, distinct building that you can't really get mixed up, and it is the fire station. Okay, so we are almost done. The last thing we are going to get to for buildings, which is kind of the most important part, especially right now because this is where all the traffic and PvP is, we are going to be talking about the military buildings. But that is it for the town buildings, the residential buildings, the single double-story buildings. This is done for every town, everything but the military place that we're going to get into. Now, a lot of you guys might be thinking, you left things out. I did leave things out. I left things out like barns, billboards, chicken coops, churches, construction sites, deer stands, gas stations, sheds. I left out stuff like that, and the reason I left it out is because that stuff is very simple, guys. There's no special callout. It is what the item or object or building is. If you see a shed, it's a shed. If you see a gas station, it's a gas station. If you see a hunting stand, it's a deer or hunting stand. It's just words that you would call it in real life, that no matter where you live, where you are, everyone calls it the same thing, or they will know exactly what you're talking about. So stuff like that I left out because it's kind of obvious. It's called what it is. If I did leave anything out that has a special name, or that is pretty big, or that even if it doesn't have a special name would be worth leaving in, and make sure you guys correct me and let people know in the comments section below. And you can even link an image if you'd like. Make sure it's like an Imgur or a known link, website link for pictures, or else I'll probably remove it because I don't want people, getting fished. But if I left anything out, I'm sorry, but anything I didn't leave out is most likely very simple. Just stuff that you would call what you would call it in real life. So next on the list is the hangar, or the military hangar. This is a very simple one, as you can see. Next, we have the two different tents. This tent, as you can see, is a military tent. Very simple. And this tent is also next to the military tent, except this one's a little smaller with a cross on it. This is the medical tent. This one's called a couple different things. It's known as the military building. That's what it's actually called. But a lot of people call it the jail because of the jail cell inside it, or the guard building because that's just a name it's picked up as well. So military building, but really commonly known as the jail or the guard building. Next, this is also another military building, but this one's known as the ATC building, or the control building. Air Tower Control, that's what ATC, I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. I might be being retarded, but control building or ATC building. Next is the barracks. This is just obviously a barrack with barrack rooms in it. It's long, they've been there, and that is just very easily known as the barracks. And the last and final one, these are the new barracks that came out this patch. This is what they look like, except those green doors can now open and they're enterable. There is no, I don't know what the callout is or the technical name of the building is at the moment because of how new they are, but me and my friends are in my group that I play with are just calling the new barracks because it is a form of barracks in a different shape that looks like this. So when we say new barracks, that's just knowing, hey, those are the barracks that just came out. So new barracks is what I call them, and it's pretty easy to call it. And anyone that reads the patch notes, plays the game, when you say new barracks, they're going to know what you mean. So that is the end of this video. If I missed anything or left anything out that was not obvious, that was important, make sure you correct me in the comment section below. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video and helped you out and you think it'll help other people out, make sure you click that like button to spread the news around about this video. Also, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I always respond. If you want to see more guides and gameplay from me, make sure you click that subscribe button. You can also find me on Twitch and Twitter in the description below. I hope this helped you guys out, and I encourage you guys to subscribe if it did. Also, I just want to thank you guys a lot for just coming by, stopping, watching, and we're gonna have a great new series with learning how to PvP in the new towns and the towns. So make sure you want to leave a comment on what town you want to see the first PvP guide in. So yeah, I hope this helped you out, and I will see you guys next video. Thanks for rocking with me today, and I hope you guys learned from this and have a good one.